Welcome to a TCEA remote learning video. This video is designed to help you become a Zoom expert, to learn a few tips and tricks to master this remote learning tool. My name is Jennifer Berglund, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for TCEA, but I also do some training for the organization. You can reach all of us by going to tcea.org and go under the About link, and you can get all of our contact information. My email is jberglund@tca.org. First thing I want to make sure you know is that this is like anything that you learn. There's going to be a learning curve. So you need to take it slow. You need to give yourself a break. It's going to be a rough start, but it will get better. This is not a difficult tool to learn to use. You and your students and possibly their parents are learning something new. So just give each other some grace and just recognize that you're all going to make mistakes, but you will learn how to teach in this new way. First things first, I want to make sure that you know that your students should that you need to teach your students how to mute and unmute themselves, and also to turn their video on and off. And I will demo that in just a little bit, but I have created just a 2-page PDF that just kind of helps first-time users know how to get in and use some of those controls. So here is a link to this PDF. Let me show you very quickly what that looks like. It is just a document with some instructions on what to click on. When they first enter, they'll click on openzoom.us. Then they will click on join with their computer audio. And then it discusses a little bit about some of these different controls. And again, I will show you those in live in just a minute. One of the things that I really want you to really recognize is that your students need to keep their microphone on mute unless they want to talk. And that's because there's going to be a lot of ambient noises that's going to go on in the different locations of where your students are. This happens even when you're in adults are in a meeting. And so it can be very distracting to everyone if someone is making a noise and it's just, they have a hard time thinking and focusing on what they're supposed to be focusing on. So everyone should keep their microphone on mute unless they want to talk. Then want to make sure you know that as the host, you can mute and unmute individuals, so that if for some reason you need to just mute everyone, you will have the ability to do that, and I'll show you how. Okay. Last tip before we get to the demo, I want to let you know what I usually do, and I think it's a good habit to get into, and that is, if you can, to use 2 devices, one that you're using to conduct the Zoom meeting and one that you use to help you see what your students are seeing. This is particularly useful when you're sharing your screen, because sometimes you can share your screen wrong and you think they're seeing one thing and they're not seeing that. So if you have a device, maybe it's your phone, you're actually presenting using your computer, and you have your phone set up to where it's logged into the Zoom meeting, but you make sure that you mute it so that there won't be any feedback. So you're not going to hear anything from that device, but you can see what they see. Okay. All right. So let's quickly go to Zoom and begin to look at some of these features. So this is my Zoom interface. I already created this meeting, and you'll notice down, and first of all, you just see an image of me, and that is because I've not started sharing my video, and I have put a photo of myself in my Zoom account, so that when I'm not sharing a photo, you see my image. If I didn't have any photo there, you would just see my name. A lot of people just do that, and that's fine. It's totally your preference. over here, you should be seeing my microphone, and you should see as I'm talking, the green image is showing. And you will notice that, in fact, I'm just going to make that full screen. So this is because I am unmuted. Now, if I mute this, you'll notice that you actually see that it says you are muted now, because it detects that I'm trying to talk, but it's letting me know nobody can hear me in the Zoom meeting. I think that's kind of cool. So all I would have to do is come down and click on mute. Unmute, so that I'm now, my audience who in the meeting can hear me. Well, I want to start by looking at some of the settings here. So if you see this little arrow down beside the microphone, you're going to click on that, come up to audio settings, and you will see a dialog box open up. And you can see as I'm talking, it's letting me know that it's working, okay? So, but a couple of things that I want, in fact, I'm going to stop that because that's kind of, well, it's still, okay. All right. Learn something new, that it continues to work even though I have it muted, but it has a different color. So good to know. Two things that I want you to see down here, and that is I would recommend that you mute your microphone when joining a meeting, and that's because you want to make sure that you aren't having a conversation when you click join a meeting that you don't want broadcast to other people. So I always control my microphone and my video so that I turn it on when I enter a meeting. Second, you want to probably tell your students to check this setting. This press and hold space key to temporarily unmute yourself. That's a really good fast way for a student, if they're on their computer and they're muted but they want to talk, and they can hold down on the space key, and they can temporarily unmute themselves. Let me show you how that works. So I'm muted, but now I am holding down my space bar, and you can see it says temporarily unmuted, and it will stay that way as long as I keep my finger on the space bar. When I let up, it mutes me. So that is a nice little tool for them to use. That is not available on a phone or a iPad. But I will let you know that they can mute and unmute themselves pretty easily on an iPhone or an iPad. There's a little microphone that shows up at the top of the screen, and they just touch on that, and it mutes it and unmutes it. All right, let's look now at the video settings. So I'm going to come here and click on my video settings, and you are going to see my video. This is a good way for you to test to see what other people see when you start showing your video. But I want to show you something. I purposely kept these glasses on because these are my computer glasses, and because they are help me, they're very good for computers, but they do create this blue glare, which could be distracting. So I would either need to take those glasses off and put my other glasses on, or just not wear my glasses, which is what I think I'm going to do here. Another thing I want you to see is I think you need to mirror your video, and the reason is because let me show you what happens when it's not mirrored. What you see is not the same thing that you would see if you were on the other side of this computer looking at me. Because I want you to notice something. You see that door that you see over here? I can't even point to it. This door right here. All right. That door is actually on the left. It should be on your right. So I spent a lot of time on that. I'm just suffice it to say, particularly if you're going to show anything that has words on it or any numeric numbers or whatever, you want them to see it correctly. So mirror your video. Another thing to do, that particularly if you're over the age of probably 50 or 60, you can touch up your appearance so that it takes away, just as a little bit of an edge. So I kind of like that. Also, I always display participant names on the video, and again, I turn off my video when joining a meeting so that I can control what they see. All right, so let's go ahead and start my video. All right, so now you see as what my participants would see, but I want to show you a couple of other things so that you would know how your participants would view this and how you can use it. You see here it says manage participants. That's because you are the host. Your participants or your students would just see the word participants. When I click on that, you'll notice that a screen pops up over on the right. The reason why it pops up as a little floating window is because I have gone full screen. When I go, when I don't do full screen, now it is part of the whole interface. So just kind of note that when you're full screen, things will pop up and you can move them around so that you can even get rid of them if you want to. But let's go ahead and keep it over here. So right here this would have a list of all of my participants, and I would be able to control some of the things that they can and cannot do. I could unmute them. I could mute them if I needed to. One thing that you need to hopefully learn to see is down here at the bottom is a mute all. So if you needed to, if there was somebody talking, you didn't know who it was, and you just wanted to mute it all, you could quickly do that. And you can unmute all if you wanted to. Let's look at some of these more things that you could do. One thing you could do is lock a meeting. So if once that would be useful if you told everybody to get in a certain time and you wanted to make sure people weren't getting in that weren't supposed to. Also, you can mute participants on entry. You can play a chime when they enter or they exit so you know what's going on. That might be something you might want to do. Here are some keys. Here are some tools that your participants could use to make it feel more like a face-to-face interaction. If you're in a classroom and you are interacting with your students, you're seeing facial cues or even physical cues. They raise their hand, and you could do that with your. You could ask them to raise their hand. That's certainly possible, but there are some tools that can help you do that. First of all, you don't see the little blue hand that you can raise. That if you were a participant, if you would have a little key, a little icon there with a little hand, and your students can click on that, and if your participant pane is open, then a little blue hand will show up here in the left, right up in this top corner, and that gives you a cue that this young Johnny or Sally or whoever wants to communicate, and so you could say, Johnny, what is your question, or give me your thoughts on this. And so it gives you kind of an ability to still have that same kind of interaction that you would have in your classroom. If you don't have that, the participants pane open, that information will pop up down here at the bottom so that you would be able to see it. But remember that if your students want to see the raised blue hands in the little pictures of their videos, they must have the participants pane open. You could have everybody communicate a yes or no by voting. How many want to do this, or how many think this is the right thing, or whatever. And you could use that tool to get feedback from your students. They can also, if they want to, say yes, I like that, or no, I don't want to do that. They could even clap if they think that's a good idea. Here's a thing where someone can give you an indication that they need a break, or that maybe they've stepped away from their computer for a moment, just so you'll know what's happening. So that is important to know how to handle some of those things. Very quickly, let me just show you the chat box, because there's a couple of things I want to show you that you can do. One thing, people can communicate. If I had somebody else in here, I could toggle this where it says to, and if I was allowing people to talk privately, then I could select somebody to send a private chat. And you might say, I'm not so sure I want my students to do that. And if that's true, then over here where the three little dots are, let me actually move this up a little bit. All right, those three dots here tells me who I can, as a host, decide who can chat, who can't chat. So I could say host only can chat, so I could throw links in there, or I could throw other things in there, but no one else could. Or I could say everyone could chat, but it's public. That's probably what I would do if I was a teacher, unless I really trusted my students. I think they could still send you a message privately, but that way, you're making sure they're not having a side conversation that you don't want them to have. Or you could do it to where they can only send chats to you, and then you can post those publicly if you want to. All right. This file right here allows you to send a file to your students using Zoom, and that is something that you can allow your students to do also, or you can turn that off, and you would do that in your master settings, the settings in your account. The reason why you want to really think about that, again, how much do you trust your kids? We're to the point in the school year where they pretty much know what will happen to them if they don't do the right thing. But note that they could post pictures and things in there that you deem inappropriate. So just be thinking about that. You could, if you wanted to allow us, you could turn that off in your master settings. And then if you wanted to allow somebody to temporarily share, you could make them a host, and then you could always reclaim the host if you want to. And that would allow them to temporarily share. Okay, I'm going to close that, and then last thing I want to do is talk about sharing your screen, because you're going to probably do this a lot. First of all, let me make sure that I have my Chrome open so that I can demo what this looks like. I am going to close that. All right, I am going to click on share. Now you'll see I have a couple of options. I can share my desktop, which means they'll see everything. So just make sure that your desktop is clean, and you don't want to project something you don't want them to see. Or I could just project a certain window or application. So for instance, this one, I might want to just project Google Chrome. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click on share. And so now you see just my Google Chrome. And one of the things that I want you to see is that I can tell that's what you see because there's a green box around there. And so if I want to share this full screen, I can do that. And now they see a really nice image of just my slides. And I can go through here. Note that you do see also my video. And if there were others, I could have that there. I mean, they would all be listed down here, but you can control how big or small you want that to be. You can see here, so it's not distracting to you. Also, note that I can move that around so that if you're training, sometimes when I'm training and I have the full screen, the things that pop up there can sometimes be distracting. Also, note that I need to get to my chat, and this is a little glitchy to me. Eventually, you'll notice I'm moving my screen. I mean, I'm moving my cursor up there, and eventually it should pop up where I can see those features, but it's not, which is odd. Sometimes that is the way you usually can get to the chat or to the other features. So I'm going to stop sharing that. I think that's it for this. I'm sorry this was probably too long for most of you, but I wanted to make sure I shared everything with you. And you are going to be an expert not very far from now. So be sure if you have any questions just to let us know.